Human rights are in crisis in Venezuela. This crisis is a consequence of a number of problems: social, political, and economic problems. Although these problems affect all Venezuelans, they are perceived differently by the diverse sectors of the population, putting these sectors at odds with each other. The fact is that a significant number of Venezuelans believe they are unrepresented by the nation's institutions, the same institutions in charge of addressing these common problems. This has led to protests and rallies that have been strongly repressed by the Venezuelan government, spiraling into violence, torture, and death. It is difficult not to draw similarities between Venezuela's crisis and those of Syria and Ukraine. We believe we can learn from those experiences and help stop violence and the violation of human rights in Venezuela. Informing about the facts of Venezuela's crisis is a starting point. This video focuses on the key social and economic problems that set the background for the crisis in Venezuela. Homicides are an increasing trend in Venezuela. The homicide index, which is defined as the number of homicides per 100,000 inhabitants, has increased substantially in Venezuela since 1995. The World Health Organization considers there is an epidemic level of homicides when a country reaches 10 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. From 1995 to 2010, the UK's homicide index ranged between 1 and 2 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. During that same period, Venezuela's homicide index increased from 20 to 45 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. Based on the 2012 global study of the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime, Venezuela has the 4th highest murder rate per 100,000 inhabitants in the world, well above the world average. In 2013, the homicide rate based on official figures was 39 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. The Venezuelan Observatory for Violence, an NGO monitoring crime in the country, estimated that the real figure was 79 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants for that same year. This NGO estimated that the real number of homicides in 2013 was almost 25,000. There is an economic crisis in Venezuela, with inflation and scarcity the biggest issues. For the month of January 2014, Venezuela had a monthly inflation of 3.3%. This compares to minus 0.6% for the UK. The UK's annual inflation for the month of January 2014 was 1.9%, compared to 56.3% for Venezuela. This means that just in the month of January 2014, Venezuela had almost twice the UK's annual inflation. In January 2014, Venezuela's monthly minimum wage was 3,270 bolivars, but the cost of the basic baskets of goods and services was 15,622. The minimum wage in Venezuela only covers 21% of the cost of living. Venezuela's highest denomination bolivar note is 100. The current price of canned tuna fish exceeds 120 bolivars. This means that earning the country's minimum wage, you would have to live with just under a can of tuna fish per day, without considering any other living costs. Shortage of staple goods such as food, medicine, and toilet paper is another big issue for Venezuelans. The Central Bank of Venezuela estimated that for January 2014, the scarcity index was 26.2%. This means that 1 in 4 shops will not have any basic goods at all. All of this is happening while the country's income from oil has never been higher. Just between 1998 and 2011, Venezuela received $634 billion in oil revenues. These figures speak for themselves and provide a picture of the key social and economic issues Venezuelans currently face. This is the background on which this latest series of protests started. We condemn violence, whatever its origin, and accept that there must be a goodwill from both sides in order to find common ground. But we are also aware of the key role Venezuela's authorities and institutions must play in safeguarding human rights for all Venezuelans. The violation of human rights and lack of justice will only bring further violence. The world doesn't need another crisis. Know the facts and help us raise awareness.